This is a Skies of Conflict global security alert. We are tracking a rapidly developing crisis on the NATO eastern flank, a political and logistical earthquake, shaking the very foundations of the so-called Union State, unconfirmed but highly credible. Intelligence reports are flooding our desk, indicating that the Kremlin is engaged in desperate negotiations with Minsk, that Moscow is effectively begging the Lukashenko regime for emergency shipments of refined gasoline and diesel fuel. This is not about crude oil. This is about the lifeblood of a modern military and economy, the very fuel that powers Russia's war machine and keeps Moscow City functioning. If these reports are verified, this represents a catastrophic failure of Russian logistics and a stunning reversal of roles in a relationship long dominated by Moscow. We are seeing a paradigm shift in real time where the patron state becomes the supplicant and the client state holds the keys to national survival. Imagery from commercial satellites and ground sources indicates a significant drawdown of fuel reserves at multiple Russian depots near the Western Military District. Meanwhile, rail traffic analysis shows anomalous movements on lines connecting Belarusian refineries to Russia, contrary to the usual flow. This is not a routine transfer. This is the hallmarks of an emergency bailout. The implications are staggering for months. Our analysis has pointed to critical vulnerabilities in Russia's refined fuel supply, the relentless Ukrainian drone campaign against Russian oil refineries is achieving strategic effects far beyond initial estimates. These are not pinpricks. These are systematic, debilitating strikes that have taken millions of barrels of refining capacity offline. The sky's over. Russia's heartland have become a hunting ground for cheap, yet sophisticated drones in the Russian air. Defense network is failing to stop them now. The consequences are hitting the capital. The city of Moscow is facing a potential fuel crisis that could paralyze transport, disrupt supply chains, and trigger social unrest, but the military implications are even more dire. Forward operating bases for the Russian aerospace forces rely on a constant and secure flow of high-grade jet fuel. Without it, sortie rates will plummet, pilot training will grind to a halt, and the air pressure over Ukraine could fundamentally shift. This is a critical vulnerability that NATO intelligence is certainly monitoring with intense interest. Now we turn to Belarus. Alexander Lukashenko finds himself in a precarious position of immense power and extreme danger. By controlling the flow of fuel to Moscow, he wields leverage he has never possessed before, but this is a double-edged sword. Supplying Russia could drain his own strategic reserves and leave his own military exposed on the doorstep of a hostile NATO. Furthermore, it risks making his regime a direct target in this widening conflict. The political calculus in Minsk must be frantic. Does he save his patron and risk his own nation stability, or does he hold back and watch the Kremlin potentially falter? The sky's over. Belarus are tense. Russian MiG-31 interceptors and Belarusian Su-30 fighters maintain a vigilant patrol, but this is a battle not fought with missiles alone. It is a battle of logistics and economic endurance. The brink of chaos is not just a phrase, it is the operational reality on the ground. The Belarusian population is already weary. The presence of Wagner forces the constant threat of being dragged deeper into the war, and now the potential for domestic fuel shortages as supplies are diverted to Russia. This is a powder keg waiting for a spark for NATO and the United States. This presents a strategic dilemma of the highest order. How does the alliance respond to the potential internal collapse of a neighboring state without provoking escalation? The Polish and Lithuanian borders are on high alert. F-35 Lightning II stealth fighters from the U.S. Air Force are undoubtedly increasing their patrols along the Suwałki Gap corridor, monitoring every electronic emission, every flight from Belarusian air bases. The situation is dynamic and volatile. We are at an inflection point where the logistical tail of the Russian war machine is being severed by 1,000 cuts, and the failure is now echoing back to the very gates of the Kremlin. The plea from Moscow to Minsk is not a sign of strength. It is a signal of profound systemic weakness, and when empires show weakness, the world watches and recalculates. All options are now on the table. We are Skies of Conflict, and we will continue to monitor this breaking situation. Stay with us for further updates. Skies of Conflict presents breaking news. Russia is in a state of panic, with emerging reports indicating the Kremlin is desperately requesting emergency gasoline and diesel supplies from Belarus. This stunning role reversal reveals critical vulnerabilities in Russia's war logistics, potentially triggered by Ukraine's successful drone campaign against Russian oil refineries. In this video, we analyze the strategic implications for the war in Ukraine, the stability of the Lukashenko regime, and the security of NATO's eastern flank. Could a fuel crisis in Moscow change the course of the conflict? What does this mean for the future of the Russia-Belarus Union State? We delve into satellite imagery, intelligence reports, and military logistics to provide a comprehensive picture of this developing crisis. Skies over Eastern Europe are a key battleground, and the fight for air superiority is directly tied to the fuel that powers fighter jets like the Russian Su-35 flanker and the F-16s, soon to be operational in Ukraine. This is more than an economic story. It is a story of modern warfare, where supply lines are as important as front lines.